In the years following the pandemic, global tech giants looked for an alternative to China's sprawling electronics hubs. India answered that call. Across the country, new assembly lines were switched on, promising to turn the nation into the world's next great factory floor. This chart shows how fast that sector expanded. In 2015, India's electronics exports sat at $8.6 billion. By 2025, it reached $47 billion, and the ministry expects this line to keep climbing, targeting $120 billion by 2026. But to build the factories required to hit that number, India must buy the heavy machinery, precision tools, and raw materials from outside its borders, and the primary supplier for those foundational building blocks is China. India is trying to replace its biggest economic competitor, while simultaneously relying on that exact competitor's supply chain to build its own industrial base. Beijing recognized this dynamic. Instead of competing on the price of finished goods, they moved to restrict the flow of tools needed to make them. The mechanism for this is a pair of new directives, State Council Decrees 834 and 835. These rules give the Chinese government sweeping authority to block the export of critical manufacturing machinery, the advanced technologies, and rare earth elements, the exact materials a growing industrial base requires. And the enforcement is severe. Regulators now have the power to personally punish corporate executives who attempt to shift their production out of China and into competing nations. This represents a deliberate tactic. China is legally tightening its grip on the underlying infrastructure of global trade, restricting access to the equipment India needs to scale its own output. To see how this macro-level policy threatens everyday production, we have to look closely at the active assembly lines inside India today. The domestic automotive sector is one of the fastest-growing industries in the country, and it perfectly illustrates this supply chain fragility. Take a look at this breakdown of imports. In the 2025 fiscal year, exactly 26% of all auto components brought into India came directly from China, heavily skewed toward high-value electronics. A modern vehicle is essentially a rolling computer. Every system, from the digital dashboard displays to the engine's power management, relies on complex circuitry. That means a single car rolling off the line today requires up to 3,000 individual microchips to function properly. If Beijing delays the export of those base components, Indian factories cannot simply pay a premium to get them faster. They face delayed vehicle launches, months-long waiting periods for consumers, and cars shipped without promised features. Industrial capacity is built on secure, specialized materials, not simply on cleared land or empty warehouses. Scaling up requires guaranteed, uninterrupted access to thousands of high-value components. Right now, India's growth is concentrated in assembly, putting imported pieces together to ship a final product. But beneath that assembly line lies an entire ecosystem, a deep network that mines minerals, refines chemicals, presses plastics, and programs robotics. China currently dominates that foundational layer, controlling the supply networks that create the components long before they ever reach an assembly plant. By enacting Decrees 834 and 835, Beijing can leverage its control over those deep roots to restrict the flow of materials upward, effectively starving foreign assembly lines. Until India transitions away from importing pre-made parts and commits to building its own deep component ecosystem, its factories will operate at the mercy of Beijing's export regulators. These aggressive export curbs have exposed the vulnerability of relying on a single geographic source, forcing economic planners in New Delhi to reassess their growth strategy. In response to the growing pressure, Union Minister Piyush Goyal announced that the government is taking direct steps to secure the country's supply chains. The plan involves drafting new, sector-specific investment policies. The explicit goal is to incentivize local production of critical components and reduce India's reliance on specific foreign geographies. Backing this up is a substantial capital commitment, the 33,660 crore rupee Bharat Audyogeek Vikas Yojana, or BAVIA scheme. This signals a sharp pivot in India's industrial strategy. Economic security now outweighs cost efficiency, as planners prioritize resilient domestic supply lines over the cheapest available components. Replacing an entrenched, decades-old supply chain requires an immense and sprawling physical footprint. To house this new ecosystem, the Bhavya scheme is moving to operationalize 50 scale-ready new industrial parks across the country over the next 3 years. Evolving from a nation that assembles imported parts into a self-sustaining, trusted manufacturing partner requires deep investments in heavy machinery, advanced technical research, and new logistics. It will be slow and it will be difficult. The target of hitting $120 billion in electronics exports by 2026 relies entirely on continuous, scaled output. Without doing the expensive work of building local capacity to produce the base components, that target cannot be met. Beijing's restrictive trade decrees present a formidable hurdle for Indian industry, but they also act as a catalyst. They force India to stop simply assembling products and start doing the hard work to forge its own materials from the ground up.